And now we have the honor of speaking with Faustson Tool, one of the companies nominated in the manufacturing category. And I have Alicia Svaldi here, owner and founder of Faustson.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be nominated.
Oh, we're glad to have you. And Heidi Hostetter, the vice president of Faustson Tool.
Hey, Tammy. Good to be here.
Thanks so much. Tell us a little bit about Faustson and your beginnings.
Started over 35 years ago. We've always been in high precision machining. As far back as we have parts on the space station, to being part of the Kepler project, to being part of the Mars rover and the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter. We've pioneered the EDM in the 80s, the 5-axis milling machines. Gosh, over 10 years ago, probably almost 15 years ago, and now we're into additive metal manufacturing.
Wow. And add that, I think that's where it's going to lead us, this conversation, that additive metal manufacturing. It's opened up a new window of what? Manufacturing.
Absolutely. It's changing the way everybody's looking at doing business, the way that, you know, now your ideas are realized. You can create complex parts without adding weight. There's all kinds of different variables to this, no doubt about it. And this is part of Fauston's effort in pioneering industry. That's what we do. So Alicia mentioned we're high precision manufacturing and machining, but we're also an innovator in our industry. And by and large, when we started to talk to our customers, it was really clear that they wanted somebody to come in and advocate for them and really figure this technology out. Anywhere from a 5-person company, reaction systems, to a Woodward and a Ball aerospace.
Wow. Well, and that leads us into the nomination, because that, you know, figuring out the additive processing for your clients and others led to the creation of the Adapt Center, didn't it?
It absolutely did, yeah. Alicia and I started researching this, how long ago, Alicia?
Almost 5 years, I think, by
Wow.
now. To really get into, we went over to Germany to look at equipment. We went to every machine dealer in the United States and reviewed what they had. And the stabilization is what we were looking for and what we were hoping to gain through the Adapt Center.
So we were the visionaries behind the Adapt Center. We wrote the grant to the state of Colorado, and we found the partners for the Adapt Center. What we realized pretty early into this adoption, this technology, is that the customers needed a characterization lab. Now, I know, Tammy, that you've had some interviews with the Adapt team, and so they've probably really dug into the details of what Adapt does. But it's really a beautiful marriage between industry and academia.
Absolutely, because you've got someone to figure out how it works so that the companies don't have to branch out and experiment on their own.
That's
to
correct.
some degree. Am I right?
You're 100%
Oh,
correct.
good. I'm glad I've got a good grasp of it.
You absolutely do.
We will talk more with Alicia and Heidi about Faustson Tool and their nomination coming up in the next segment. Next, we're going to talk with J.P. Morgan Chase, nominated in the financial category. And now we have a chance to talk with J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the nominees in the financial services category. And I'm talking with Chris Jensen. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and J.P. Morgan Chase here in Colorado?
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here, I should say. We've been here in the state as J.P. Morgan Chase with predecessor companies since 1874, believe it or not. So we're proud contributors to the community here. We have 1,200 employees, ranging from inside the Chase branches all the way up to commercial and investment banking, and I head the region here.
Wonderful. So as we talk about the Colorado Business Roundtable Collaboration and Industry Awards, what kind of collaboration efforts has J.P. Morgan Chase been involved in?
Well, I should say that as a firm locally and globally, we're really focused on driving inclusive growth and helping more people share in the rewards of really a growing economy, and Colorado's great for that, obviously.
Yeah.
So two of the things that we've done that I'd like to mention, we've been involved with the Downtown Denver Partnership since day one with Denver Startup Week.
Yeah.
And as you know, that's one of the largest free Startup Week events in the country. This year there were 19,000 people who applied and participated. And we think it's a great way to give exposure, to make connections for entrepreneurs and for people starting businesses, running businesses, and growing their business. So it's been really fun for us to be involved in that.
That's fantastic. And did you have another one in
Yeah,
mind
I
to share?
did. The other one that we're pretty proud of is in collaboration together with the Denver Public Schools Foundation. We have last year announced a grant of $4 million to be put in place for a pilot program with the schools districts for school students to go into Swiss-style apprenticeships to learn high-demand skills for really lucrative careers once they've graduated. And this grant really helps address an issue that's a big issue in Colorado. We've got a lot of growth here. We've got a lot of skill-based and knowledge-based jobs, and we need more people to take those jobs because currently there's, as you may know, negative unemployment in these areas, and we have influx of people moving here, but we'd really like to help those in our community be prepared and educated and skilled to be able to take on those jobs. So this is a big initiative for us and Denver Public Schools.
Great, and we're eager to hear more about them. We'll talk more with Chris Jensen coming up, talking about JP Morgan Chase. And first, we're going to take a short break and stay with us. We'll have another nominee, and that is in the manufacturing industry. We'll be talking with Faustson Tool and introduce them to you. And remember, the Colorado Business Roundtable Collaboration and Industry Awards are coming up December 7th. You can find ticket information on the events page at cobrt.com/events. And we will be right back with more. Stay with us. We're so glad you're staying with us today as we talk with nominees for the Colorado Business Roundtable Collaboration in Industry Awards. Today, we are talking with Faustson Tool, a nominee in the manufacturing category, and I'm really lucky today to have Alicia Svaldi and Heidi Hostetter here both. Alicia, you're the owner and founder of Faustson. It's great to have you here.
Correct. Thank you very much.
And Heidi Hostetter is the VP of Faustson, so you're both very involved with the day-to-day workings of the company.
The company's definitely run by two women. I know, it's pretty fun.
That's fantastic. That's great for the nomination, just starting off right there, right? And what we're talking about for the nomination in the Collaboration and Industry Awards is the creation of the Adapt Center, which tell us how that came to be. You're working in your machining capacity, right, and realizing a need for it.
Right. So it's so different. I mean, it is like the third industrial revolution because normally what you do is here is a hunk of material and you machine everything away, and now you're building it up, and it's such a greener technology. There's so much less waste, so much more accuracy involved, and it is just it's so challenging and so much fun to look at it and to be able to create instead of milling away parts or taking it to a lathe or an EDM. It's just very different technology.
And Heidi, tell me a little bit about how Adapt came to be in terms of finding a way to understand the technology and be able to relay that to your clients, customers, and others.
Sure. So, one of our marketing kind of taglines, if you will, is that, well, there are a couple. We accept your challenge. The second is that, and you've heard this before, Tammy, we have a part on or around basically every planet in the system.
Wow.
That gives you a little idea of our client base. So as we, I guess, met their need with making the acquisition of the 3D metal printer, a lot of these customers started to come to us and say, we understand how beneficial this technology could be to us, to our engineering teams, to our cycle time to market, on and on. However, we need to understand the material science behind it.
Okay.
Well, we don't do that. Faustson, that is not our claim to fame. We'll make the part, we'll do whatever it is you ask us to do, but we really needed partners to help us figure out the science behind it. So in other words, these folks wanted to understand what their risk was to getting into this at the real base level.
Because you're talking about very expensive additive printing machines.
About a little over $1 million by the time you're really all in.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty incredible. However, I mean, you have heard of the GE case study, have you?
You tell me.
So I think I sound like a broken record, but this is the case study that really seals the deal for manufacturers out there, and that is that GE, and I think it was 2012, made an announcement that all of their LEAP fuel nozzles were going to be additively manufactured. Okay, there's 19, I think it's 19 per engine. When they made that decision, here are the big factors involved. They took 19 different part numbers and created one.
Right.
Okay. They reduced the weight by, I think it was 25%. They increased the efficiency in the 30% range, and they eliminated all secondary processes, assembly, brazing. And so when you start to look at that case study, manufacturers went, we have to figure this out. So we need someone to make the parts, but we also need someone to tell us what we're getting, what we're getting when we get the part.
Right, and if I can break that down, if I understand it properly, so you're talking about manufacturing a nozzle, which maybe in the past had, you said 19 parts, and you'd have to assemble that and put it together. With the additive manufacturing, it's one part.
You print one part.
You do it all in one fell swoop.
Print one part. The rule of thumb is really 80-20. You know, you want to print 80% of the part, and you probably clean up about 20% of it on your traditional equipment. So we're not eliminating jobs by any means, but we are in fact working with the workforce gaps that we're faced with. So there's no we're not being naive moving forward as a community.
Great. So tell me, can you describe a project or event where the ADAPT Center was able to go above and beyond in this collaboration with others? And I think just the ADAPT Center in itself is that example.
Sure, and I mean, at any point, Alicia, stop me. I tend to jabber on and on, but you know, I think one of the biggie things was getting small, medium, and large companies to come together at the table and really decide to work together without any, witut worrying about the proprietary angles.
Sure.
So to get Lockheed in a room, to get Ball Aerospace in the room, to get Faustson in the room, to say, we will figure this out. Those were the founding members, and to since have grown it to about 25 members, I'm not sure exactly what the number is now, and get all of those people in the room, including some of our competitors.
Right.
Which you have to be open to. You have to be, you can't compete with one another. You have to be open to, accept this challenge as a new technology to help each other out.
We have to collaborate, and that was really the complete push behind ADAPT, the vision, how we wrote the grant, how we structured it, how we set the center up in the early days, was we all have to get there. We have to figure this out together. Whatever comes as a result of that, now that becomes proprietary, and that's different.
Okay. Yeah, but I like that concept of let's work together, figure out what we all need to learn, and then everybody can move ahead exponentially.
Exactly. If you grow that bigger pie, everybody stands to benefit.
Great. And what can you give us any examples of the outcome of this?
Oh gosh, sure. I mean, we have, so the ADAPT Center has won, I think now, 1 or 2 economic development awards, which really shocks people when you have an academic-led institution that's winning economic development awards. And the reason that I like to bring that up is because it speaks to the collaboration and the ecosystem. For example, there's a small manufacturer here in Golden, I think it is, who received funding from the Air Force for a heat exchanger for a scram engine. And without the ADAPT Center and without this collaboration, there's a chance that it may not have happened, and or it could have been greatly delayed, but they were able to get a $750,000, funding from the Air Force. And we have several stories like that where we've come in and said, hey, this collaboration will help grow your business quite quickly, because the reality is we don't all have the kind of funds that a GE does to figure this out.
Yeah, and I love also the concept of bringing all these minds together to learn the additive processing technologies, to find out how they're best going to serve each different company and what projects they're working on.
Right, and not only that, but the students that apply
Oh, they're from all over
They're
the
from
world.
all over,
Oh, wow.
and to watch these young minds and the way they think and how they attack a project it's so inspirational. It really is to
Really?
have such a different technology, and in our field as the blue collar workers, our aging
Mm-hmm.
employment is definitely challenged, and bringing new people into our field. And when you get to watch these students, it's just really wonderful.
That's a great point, Alicia. Yeah, and I'm sure ADAPT spoke to this, but if they didn't, the student draw for this center has been incredible.
Really?
We have students from Georgia Tech, Belgium, UC Berkeley, from all over the nation, all over the world, who are now working in that lab for their post-studies.
And can you describe that potential a little bit more? I mean, because this is the future. This is how the manufacturing is going to be done, more so than traditional manufacturing, right?
I do believe that to be the case. If that's not the case, I will be fired next year. So we took a big risk on this.
Yeah.
And it's been quite the investment for Faustson. So kudos to Alicia for being futuristic in her ability to support this. I think, it will allow Colorado the opportunity to really be the advanced manufacturing state, the additive state.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that to be true 100%. I think if you talk to Manufacturers Edge, Department of Commerce, you talk to most of the academic institutions here in the state, they would also support that statement. So, we're bringing the workforce here.
Mm-hmm.
One, we're training them to the needs of the manufacturers.
Correct.
That's two.
Mm-hmm.
And additionally, I think something that's worthy of mention is that our governor's office and their global business development team, which I think is run by Michelle Hadwiger, they are currently, people are considering moving their companies here because of this center.
Oh, wow.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and really ahead of the curve, right?
Very much so. And that's the way Fauston's always been. We were ahead of the curve with the EDM. We were doing the 5-axis a decade before anybody else got into it. But this is a new challenge, and it's so different, and incorporating young engineers' minds to be able to engineer a different way. That's what the challenge will be with them, instead of traditional engineering to make a part.
Wow. We are talking today with Alicia Svaldi and Heidi Hostetter of Faustson Tool, one of the nominees in the manufacturing category, and you're nominated along with Ball Corporation, the OIA Sustainability Working Group, and the Southeast Colorado Manufacturing Partnership. So you're in great company.
Yeah,
And
we're flattered.
Very.
Can you tell me what it might mean in this Colorado Business Roundtable's Collaboration in Industry Awards? This is our inaugural awards. What would it mean to win this award in the manufacturing category for you?
You taking that, or am I?
It would just be an honor. It's incredible to be nominated. I mean, considering the size we are and the other size of the other companies,
Yeah.
I mean, we are the small manufacturer, but we're always challenging one another, and to be recognized alone is just an incredible compliment.
I'd like to add to that, and I would like to say this. 80% of our commerce is defined by small business, and I think that to win this award would be a big shout out to small business and 80% of the coverage economically, to say your ideas matter and you can really make something happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Heidi Hostetter and Alicia Svaldi. With Faustson Tool, one of the nominees in the manufacturing category. We'll be back next talking with JP Morgan Chase in the financial category. Stay with us. We're so happy you're staying with us today as we talk with nominees for the Colorado Business Roundtable Collaboration in Industry Awards. And today we're talking with a nominee in the financial services category, JP Morgan Chase. And I have Chris Jensen here to tell us more about JP Morgan Chase's collaboration efforts. And Chris, before we get started, I want to just remind that you're nominated in the financial services category along with ACG Denver and with First Bank. So good company to be in, right?
Absolutely. It's an honor to be mentioned in that company, for sure.
Of course. And tell us about, you told us a little bit about JP Morgan Chase, and tell us how JP Morgan Chase has shown this outstanding collaboration.
Well, first of all, I would just say that we're really big across not only the country and locally also, but globally on driving inclusive growth. And when we say that, many times the economy grows and not everybody participates. And so we have a variety of pillars that are really important for us. We address small business lending, community development, workforce readiness, including skills for our young people. And we believe in doing that. It's not only kind of a moral obligation, but it's good business.
Right.
Especially in a city like Denver and a state like Colorado.
Right. And if you're going to provide financial services, you want people who are building their own resources and their own net worth, right?
Absolutely. It helps along many aspects of that. Obviously, we want to help companies get started. We want them to develop. And when we have a workforce gap, kind of a skills gap,
right,
it's our obligation to train people here in our own state to take those jobs. We have an in-migration of people coming to Colorado because there's more jobs being created than people able to take those jobs. So we mentioned a few areas, and if you don't
tell us
mind,
about those programs.
Yeah, so two things that we've been involved in over the last few years that we're really proud of. One is Denver Startup Week. We worked together with the Downtown Denver Partnership, and we were really started from day one when it was just an idea. And we said, we don't know what it's going to look like, but we're supporters.
But we want to be a part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so every year for the last 6 years, we've been the title sponsor of the Denver Startup Week and the sponsor for the Base Camp. And Base Camp this last year was at the Commons on Champa, where entrepreneurs come together, they network, they plug in, they get a cup of coffee, they learn something. There are a lot of panel discussions there. And we help connect them to the resources necessary for them to get not only the courage, but the tools and the capital to start their businesses. As they do that, it creates more opportunity, more jobs. They're really the drivers of job growth in our country, are small businesses. Sometimes folks look at J.P. Morgan and say, gee, you're so big, you only bank the biggest companies in the country, and that's not true. We have 4 million small business customers across the country, and 10,000 bankers that focus specifically on small business. And in Colorado, we do that, and we're proud of it. So that's one of the areas.
Right. And the next?
And the next is, I should say, just to back up broadly, over the last year, in Colorado alone, we made $3.7 million in charitable contributions to Colorado organizations to help support our key areas. And again, those are small businesses, workforce development, community development, and financial capability. And one of them that we're really proud of was the $4 million grant that we provided to Denver Public Schools Foundation for a pilot program that equips the district's high school students with high demand skills for careers once they graduate. And those are both skill-based and knowledge-based careers.
Right.
The idea is to model it after kind of the Swiss apprenticeship model, where students apply, and during their junior year, they spend half their time in class, and then they have half their time getting paid to learn.
Right.
And then they do that their junior year, their senior year. Then once they graduated, they do a full year, and then they have the right to either continue on in a career or go back to college. And we really like that. The Denver Public Schools have really been innovative in considering that and helping our young people, especially here in Denver, to gain those skills necessary.
Well, as we're hearing so much about continually here, especially in Colorado, of those efforts to make sure students have a skill that they're ready to work, rather than you get more education and you still haven't worked.
Absolutely. That can be the case very much. And learning how to do the job is as important as your knowledge,
of
right?
Knowing what needs to be done, right?
Exactly.
Yes, and it's such an important step, because, and I think when you have those skills and you have those skills so you can get to work, it gives you a little more freedom that you can make some money, and then if you want to go on to a 4-year degree or something, then you have the resources to do so.
That's a good point. If we look at inclusivity, an economy can be growing like it is in Colorado, and some people don't participate in it to the extent of others, and it's usually because there's that skills gap.
Exactly.
And so we hope that the grant is designed to get to have about 9,000 students who participate over the first 3 years, and eventually get to 20,000 students participating. And it's a viable alternative to traditional four-year college education, because if they can learn those skills, exit with a high-paying job and a high-paying opportunity, that's a terrific way to fill those gaps.
Can you give us some examples in both, your downtown Denver partnership and that work with Denver Startup Week, or the grants you're able to provide to the Denver Public Schools Foundation, where you've really seen that work going above and beyond to facilitate collaboration with those groups?
Well, what I would tell you for the Denver Startup Week, it's really interesting to see how an ecosystem evolves.
Right.
And it's if people are off on their own doing things, it's hard for them to run really quickly. But as they start to connect with sources of capital, sources of advice, people who've done it before, connections with other entrepreneurs around town who have access to service providers, all of that ecosystem starts to work together. And so we've seen many companies that have started with an idea who are now growing and going strong, and becoming big companies and even going public.
And then what has been the outcome of some of these collaboration projects that you've seen? So
one example is a company that started up in Boulder several years ago that we're involved with early on, hearing their idea and their growth, and they've since grown on the tech side to a company that's now actually went public last week, and very successful offering. So it's fun and gratifying to start early on,
right.
See them grow, and accomplish greatness. And what happens is with those companies, once that wealth is created and that opportunity, you'll have individuals inside that organization will spin off and start other companies.
Right.
And that's really important for attracting talent to this state, is people want to know that it's not just one trick pony, that there's an ecosystem.
Yes.
And they can go from one job to another and one opportunity to another.
And we do, and we keep hearing that about Colorado, that it's such a great place to collaborate, that it's not one business out for themselves. It really is the bringing everybody up with the tide, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a great spirit of collaboration here in Colorado for stakeholders, businesses, the government, and not-for-profit organizations. And we work with many not-for-profit organizations in the early stage where they're providing good advice and capital to underserved entrepreneurs. One thing that I'd like to mention is we made $300,000 in grants to 5 different not-for-profits to help that underserved community of entrepreneurs, so women, minorities, veterans. And we used the Denver Startup Week as a platform to announce that, but that's also really gratifying work.
Oh, thank you. I'm talking with Chris Jensen of J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the nominees for the Colorado Business Roundtable Collaboration and Industry Awards in the financial services category. And we're so glad to have you. And one last question here as we wrap up, Chris. What would it mean, as this is the Colorado Business Roundtable's inaugural awards, what would it mean for J.P. Morgan Chase to receive that award in the financial services category?
Well, it would be an honor, and really it's an honor just to be part of this community. Like I mentioned, I think it's a very collaborative community. We all want to raise the whole thing, so I don't view it as a competition as much as just an honor to be considered among the group of folks that are trying to make a difference here.
Well, and we're happy to have you as a part of it. Stay with us after the break. We're going to we'll be talking more about the Collaboration and Industry Awards at the Colorado Business Roundtable. And remember, those the Colorado Business Roundtable Collaboration and Industry Awards are coming up on December 7th. You can find ticket information on the events page at cobrt.com. Again, that's on the events page. And stick with us. We'll be right back after the break.